And Jack, would you say you mentioned hero's journey? Would you say in today's culture, and we can speak specifically about America, would you say that's something we've kind of lost? Is that connection to, and I know like as a military member, I think that's a great example of kind of the transition from childhood to manhood, and going through that one part of the hero's journey. But would you say that that's something kind of in culture today that like there would be extreme benefits to kind of reintegrating that way of thinking about the hero's journey, and maybe even educating kids at a young age about what that process may look like and what the kind of archetypes are that are associated with that process?
Yeah, when we talk about popular culture and we talk about its impact, not just on America, but on the world, that hero's journey does, if you think of the best films or the best books, if you really go back and study, you'll find out that they do have these certain elements that have been with us since the first oral storytellers were passing along lessons learned from the hunt and from war around the campfire to keep those lessons alive through the medium of storytelling. So they still exist, but today there are so many distractions out there, unhealthy distractions out there. And then when we talk about a personal journey and a rite of passage, I think that's still within us. There's still that spark in our DNA, because in cultures from the beginning of time up to now, there has been most of the time a certain period of time, let's say 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, somewhere in there, where someone has to go through a rite of passage and prove their value to the tribe to be then accepted by that tribe. That's why I think Marine Corps boot camp stands out for so long as something that people, young men in particular, aspire to go through, whether they know why or not. They want to serve their country, they want to do this, but it's also that rite of passage that's been within just us as a species from the beginning of time. So whether it's Marine Corps boot camp or it's Army Special Forces Q course, or it's Ranger School, or it's BUDS, something that tests you is very natural to want to do, and then be accepted by the tribe, and in this case, by a military unit that we're talking about in particular. So I think it's still there, but it's been so clouded by so many other distractions out there, and we're told, whether it's intentional or not, that you don't really need to do any of that sort of thing. But when one time you had to, because otherwise you're going to be shunned from that tribe, because you had to add value to that tribe to survive. For that, and hopefully today we want to do more than just survive. We want to prevail, but back then, to survive, to continue the bloodline, to continue the species, you had to prove your value to that tribe as a warfighter, as a hunter, something. And today, that's it's not really there overtly, but I think that spark is still within us, which is why people still aspire to make it through Marine Corps boot camp and some of those tests like that.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jack, I think you just gave us a good soundbite for a potential Born Primitive commercial, because that what you just said right there is like what the basis of why we named the company Born Primitive is, that exact mentality. You know, the fact that, we have all these modern comforts, and, we got iPhones and air conditioning and all these nice things, but so we don't need that kind of innate savage-like instinct anymore, but it's still in there and it still exists. And I absolutely agree. That rite of passage, it's almost like you're drawn to the challenge. And I'm guessing that's a big reason why you wanted to go to BUDS, because you wanted to see if you could hack it, right? And then once you get accepted into the brotherhood, you're proud, and now you become a gatekeeper of the same community, right? For the next batch of guys coming through, and you hold the standard, which is a pretty cool thing to be able to do. So,
Yeah.
well, it's interesting, Jack, 'cause
the library with my mom, I remember my takeaways back then at age 7, from whenever. There wasn't much back then, so you could reach the end of the internet because it was the end of the library shelf. And my takeaways were that, hey, this training called BUDS is some of the toughest training ever devised by a modern military, and this group of called SEALs, this unit, is they're touted anyway as some of the best special operators in the world. So those two things, those were my takeaways, and so I was like, these are my people. So yeah, that was the draw, to test yourself, and learning those two things about BUDS and then about what you would do afterward. Okay, I'm in.
Heck yeah. Yeah. As you tell your story, Jack, it's like you literally became the perfect storm for, I think, the success you've achieved now as an author, because you were very well read, right? You were, reading books all the time, and it sounds like in a subject matter that is related to what you write about now. But then you got to go do the real thing for like 20 years, right? And kind of, experience what that actually looks like. So when combine the two, it's not surprising, the success you've achieved when you take those two skill sets and now you put pen to paper. So I'm curious with the character James Reese, for those listening. James Reese is the main guy in the Terminal List, and an absolutely badass character. When was he born? Was this something you had been thinking about for a long time, in your military career, or did it? I guess walk us through, when he was developed, and I also, I guess in the early stages of writing, was there kind of a trial period where you had to throw a bunch of stuff out and kind of hone your craft, or were you right out of the gates feeling pretty confident in your abilities?
I was feeling pretty confident right out of the gate. I mean, that's let's say before I put pen to paper, let's say I started reading the same books my parents were in 1985, let's say. So from 1985 up until I started writing that first novel in December of 2014, I think I wrote the first words then. That's a long time to study. So that overnight success was really, and it was a reading before that too, although it was young adult fiction, but it's reading things like, My Side of the Mountain or Farley Mowat books, Lost in the Barrens, and all these young adult books. So that in turn allowed me to then read the same kind of books my parents were reading at age 10 and certainly by age 11. So it was a long road as far as study goes, but I wasn't thinking of it in those terms back then. I was just reading for the magic. And I think it would be different if I was all of a sudden getting out of the military and I kind of maybe dabbled, or I read a couple books here and there, and I thought, oh, can you make some money at writing? What should I have been reading since 1985 in order to build this foundation, and then go back? But now I'm reading these books through a filter of the experiences that I've had, maybe a little more cynical perhaps, or whatever it might be. But I got to read those books completely unfiltered, because I'm 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. So I don't yet have that life experience built up. I'm just enjoying the magic of those pages. So it's pure. I think that's the best way to put it. So that I can't thank my parents enough for encouraging, not even just encouraging me to read, but making it a natural part of my life. And I think that's different than encouraging someone to read and making it a natural part of the day, just like eating food or going outside for some exercise or anything like that. Reading was a natural part of my life from day one. And then when I started to write, I think being so in tune with what I liked as a reader, what resonated with me as a reader, and not just as a reader, but as a viewer and a consumer of popular culture in general, specifically movies and television shows. I knew what I liked in a main character. I knew what I liked in supporting characters. I knew what I liked in antagonists. I know what I liked as far as political thrillers and espionage thrillers, and where twists come in, and what a cliffhanger means, and where it's appropriate and when it's not. So I just knew what I liked as a fan, from the fan perspective.